There we go. Hello, SolarLune. Hello, SolarLune here, and here's another devlog video for the game I'm making in Go. I Know Who I Am. Who I Am is a 2D adventure game. That is not correct. A 2D adventure game made with Raylib currently that is going to be a game that I make where you walk around and explore a world as a alien that is assimilating as another person. So it's a very interesting idea. Not seen too much, I don't think, and I think it'd be pretty fun. So that's the game. So the last time I spoke, actually, well, first let me go ahead and kind of show what I have. So let's do this first. Oops. There we go. Wait a second, it's not. Oh, didn't it save it? I must not have saved it. There we go. There we go. So yeah, that's just a little bit of it. So you can kind of see what I'm going for. Kind of like Humanity and other RPG Maker adventure games where you walk around, kind of solve puzzles. You're controlling a character and not really a cursor on a screen. The controls are very simple, made for consoles or handheld games. Kind of simple, you know, movement, accept, check. That's really it. There's not going to really be verbs like talk, you know, use, turn, pick up, put down, combine, things like that. It's just going to be basically context based. So you'll have an inventory where you, well, I have an inventory where you can interact with things. Like this book. But mainly, basically, once you get things like books or keys or whatever, you just stand next to the thing you want to use it with and then press the inventory button to examine the item, and then it'll present you with the option to use it if necessary. So you still have to come up with it, but you don't have to like press a verb and then press the item and then press another verb, or, you know, press an item. It's a little more streamlined. So this week, or the past couple weeks, it's been a couple of weeks since the last time I did any devlog videos. It's been quite a lot. So let me kind of go through this a little bit at a time. So let me roll back a little bit. That's not it. To look at my source control. Oh, there's more comments here. Okay, well, yeah, well, I'll just go over. I remember most of it. So the last video that I made, I was talking about basically saving, and I implemented saving and loading into the game. And so I was thinking about, like, how am I going to save it? I had some general idea, but I didn't really come up with anything at the time. And so what I ended up doing was making the saving system. The way the saving system works is basically the way the game is laid out. Everything is a board. So let me pull up a sprite here so you can see what I mean. All right, so no, there we go. All right, so everything is a board in a sprite. So you have, for example, let's see if we can find a board here. So on this board, which is an A sprite file, there's different NPCs or elements on it, which are represented by these red slices. So this is where the bookshelf is, this is where the hole is, and the broken staircase that you can't interact with. This is where the trapdoor is. So there's elements on this board that are themselves also boards. So everything is a board. The player is a board, the maps are boards, everything's a board. And so a save game is basically a collection of boards, the inventory, the flags you've set, like if you've talked to someone, if you've already checked an item, if you've solved a puzzle, those kind of things. The current board, and also which image is currently being viewed on the screen. So when we save, we just loop through the boards and append that data to the append a serialized version of that data to this board struct, and then we just go ahead and save it out to a JSON file, which is nice. And then loading is just basically that in reverse. The interesting thing about this is I tried basically serializing the boards I had initially automatically, because Go, or the JSON package in Go, allows you to go ahead and like serialize structs automatically, but it didn't work. And now that I think about it, or when I thought about it earlier, I was thinking that the reason why it wasn't working was possibly because my boards have references to themselves. So like a board has a reference to the parent board it's on, and then the parent board has references naturally to its children. So I think that in the process of serializing these boards, it was basically getting stuck because it was serializing like board A points to board B, board B points to board A, and then A points to B, and it just loops, and that's why it froze. So what I ended up doing was making a function that specifically serialized and unserialized or deserialized boards to a data structure. So a board data. Actually, do we ever use this? Yeah, we do. So a board data struct is basically just used for saving and loading. So it has a position. It's got an animation currently that's playing and which frame it's on, if it's playing an animation, whether it's visible, and also the subboards, which are themselves board datas. So in the serialization process, it just copies the data from the actual board down into this save structure, and then it just basically copies down the children boards as well, that data, and then returns that information. Deserialization just basically takes the data from the an input board data structure and puts it in the board so that it reloads the position, reloads the settings, all that stuff. So the saving and loading function works really well, works fine. Yeah, there's not really any problem with it currently. I'll add to it as necessary, but this currently should cover most uses and most situations where you would need to save or load the game and have the data carry over. I believe. I worked on a couple of other things. I added a function to set the position of a board and also move the board, which is useful. So you can, for example, go to, we'll say, where's the bedroom event? Oh, that's what I was working on. That's what I was working on. All right, I might implement that in this video as well. But basically, yeah, okay, so let's say in the board, we say we want to select the player board and we want to move him 16 pixels over to the right. Oh, I didn't save it. What am I thinking? There we go. Yeah, so now it just moves, it literally moves him 16 pixels over. Now, and it does that for anything. We can say the dresser, it'll do that for the dresser too. There we go. So that's cool, it works. So moving, setting position, that should work fine. There's still some bugs with setting position because of a couple of problems. Basically regarding positions in the game for boards. It's a little wrong. It's not really working as it should. Because it's kind of hard to explain, but basically something that doesn't have, like, if you try to move a board, an NPC that belongs to a board that doesn't have a sprite file, the board doesn't really exist. And so it doesn't really move it correctly. So I have to come back to that and kind of figure out how to move something that basically doesn't have an sprite file to load. Yeah, so I gotta work on that a little bit more. But overall, for moving things that are external sprites, that are basically objects, like a bookshelf or the trapdoor or whatever, you can move it around and it'll work fine. I worked on the select function for the events. Let me see if I can pull this up. Where is it at? I worked on the select function so that it allows you to go ahead and actually select things in different ways. So if we look at this documentation, I kind of was working on as well to kind of just make it a little easier to understand. Basically, select allows you to select a board for use with other functions like playing an animation or setting a position or moving. Also, this should be capitalized like this. There we go. So, for example, if you want to select another object in the same on the same map, you just call it by the name. If you want to select another an object on another map, you just preface the map name with a $sign. If you want to select something within the board that you're selected, so for example, if you want to select the player's hat, you can say .hat or player.hat. And then if you want to select the inventory, you can just, actually this should be counted like that. If you want to select the inventory, you can say $sign inventory. So I still have to add the ability to add objects. I have the ability to remove objects, and I have the ability to add things, add items and remove items. I have to add that actually. So this documentation should be useful. This documentation should be useful for myself, but then also, and kind of as setting a syntax that things are supposed to follow, but then also for anyone else who wants to use the same engine to make their own game. All right, so now something that you might have seen just right there a couple of seconds ago, right in here are all of these. You might have seen this a little bit. This function, NPC escape event. So what this is I've added to all the functions that I've used so far common escapes if basically you misuse an event that will keep it from crashing. Let me turn off the sound real quick because it's a little... It's going to come out through the mic as well. I'm not wearing my headphones right now. Let's see, where's... Let's audio enable false. There we go. All right, so if I talk to this bed, right, or if I interact with this bed, it says it's a bed, completely unfamiliar to me, I woke up here. Now, if I go over here to the bedroom event, and if I go over to the bedroom event and I take away the quotes and save, it will, rather than crashing, say, hey, the message statement has more than one argument, were double quotes forgotten. Did you mean to do this, basically? So I put in double quotes and now it will actually display the message properly. If I say play sound and I don't give an argument, instead of crashing, it'll say play sound statement has no argument of a sound file name to play. For example, play sound hit.wave. So I need to say what it is. So this is good because this allows me to, this should allow for a smoother workflow so that if I, for example, type another message like this, rather than crashing, it'll say, hey, what was that? It didn't, in this case, it wasn't able to parse it because I started with a quote and didn't end it with a quote. I actually could catch that and fix it. Now that I think about it, let me do that. Let me see if I can catch it and fix it. So the way that the parsing system works, I believe it's in the assets. This is where it gets parsed under get resource. Yeah, so this is where it gets parsed. So basically, quote count, if it's equal to 0 or is equal to 2, append else. Yeah, I want to see if I can kind of catch, well, it's not that big of a deal if, because the way that this works is kind of complex. I don't want, really want to tweak it if I don't have to. Let's see, quote count. Well, that's okay. That's okay. I think it's fine. It doesn't really, like, if the way it is currently, if you mess up, it'll let you know, like, hey, line number 4, command 1 Actually, this should be command 2. Message blank. Yeah, it's no text argument. So you already know to check it. So it's not a huge deal if it doesn't catch the quote. Let me fix that though in the MPC brain. That's not what I meant to do. Escape event. Let's just jump there. Okay, so this should be line number is correct. Command, this should be +1 because this is actually the second command. We're not doing zero index. So if I go over here, I mean, I'm not doing zero index for this error reporting. So command number 2, message, yeah, line number 4. If I go to the window and do the same thing, it should be command number 2, line 9. Yeah, command number 2, line 9, bedroom.window. So you already know to come here. Bedroom.window, line number 9. So that's, yeah, command 2, message. So that tells you exactly what the problem is. This is the command, and then these brackets contain the arguments that were found. So if the arguments are incomplete, it'll at least give you an idea of what it tried to see. But yeah, message statement has no text argument to display. So that's good. So this is good because basically now instead of just crashing, it'll let you know if there's a problem like this. Play sound got sheen.wave, cannot load the sound file. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. So it can't play the sound file because the audio is actually off. So I have to kind of figure out what to do about that. I guess we'll just do this. Play sound. So yeah, if the sounds couldn't be loaded and audio is enabled, then yeah, that's fine. And then I just have to do the same thing for playing music. Do it like this. To do this for... All right, good. So now, so yeah, the saving and loading is working. The event escaping is working. There I am loading the game. It persists through through restarts of the game, of course. So if I start up again, it'll go to the correct map and give me the correct items and things. Everything should be fine. I worked on sounds, so I added different sounds that allow for just, you know, hearing what's going on. What else? Yeah, so this is all the work that I did in adding escapes, so that if things don't work out, it'll try to let you know what's going on, rather than just crashing outright. Yeah, let's see. Apart from that, right. Okay, yeah. So apart from that, something I added that might have gone unnoticed is that if you interact with something and you're above the halfway point of the window, it'll put the message at the bottom of the window instead of the top. So if you interact with something above, it'll put it at the bottom. If you interact with something below, it'll put it at the top like that, which is good. It's a nice little feature. Something that people don't really think about, but that's kind of necessary. Otherwise, the window's going to be up here and kind of obscure some of the screen, like if you're interacting with something. Now, the problem here, yeah, here's the problem, is something I was working on. Let's see, where's the bedroom? Let's close everything else. Clock, okay, so clock window. Okay, so let's just comment this out. So now if I run this game, you notice that the window spawns at the bottom because the player's at the top of the screen still. And that's kind of bad because it's overlapping the clock graphic. And the clock graphic I have is basically like this. I'm not really cropping it. It's just kind of sized down and differently colored with a kind of a restricted palette. But the graphic itself is just this. I don't have anything else at the bottom that I can use to kind of manipulate the clock. So what I want to add is a function that will kick this message box at the top specifically. And so that's what I'm going to be making here. So that's what we'll do right now. So I want to make a function that basically will set this, will allow us to set this. And if we, yeah, it'll set it and it'll stay until the NPC stops interacting. So this will allow us to force it to be on or off. So window, or I'm sorry, at the top or bottom. So window at top, message at top. Yeah, message at top, message at top, message at top. Yeah, that should be fine, I think. I'm trying to see if that's a good, that's good, that's fine. That spelling is fine. Well, what about win at top? Win at top. Window at top. That's fine. Yeah, we'll just go with this, message window at top. So now we're gonna actually be making our own function right now. So we're gonna go to the NPC brain, that's where all the functions live. And we're gonna make another case specifically for this. So we're gonna just advance it, advance past this, like basically once it hits this event, I'm sorry, this line is just going to go to the next one. It's not supposed to stop there. It's just supposed to apply the effect and keep moving. And that effect is going to need to be checked to make sure that there's nothing missing. So I'm trying to see if I don't. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to just copy some code here. This is going to be value, we'll call it. We're going to convert it to parse a bool specifically from the string arg0. If length args is equal to 0. So here's another possible problem. I only want to return false. Here's another possible problem is that basically if we give no command, then that needs to be a problem that needs to be alerted to the developer, or if the command is not proper. So for example, in this situation, we use message window at top, but we don't give a value. That's not acceptable. So we'll say message window at top statement needs a Boolean value. Example, message window at top. I'm going to say message win at top. That's just easier, I think. True. Cool. Then we want to do the same thing over here. And say message win at top statement needs one Boolean value. It's the same message. We'll just use the same message. It's fine. All right, cool. Now, let's see. arg0, we don't need this. Parse bool, value error. Okay. So once we're done, we just say message on top equals value. And yeah, that's it. So now we should be able to basically control whether it's at the top or not, depending on how we want to do things. The way that it currently works is that it did not work. Message went at top, true. Message went at top, true. Oh, okay. The commands are also lowered automatically, converted to lowercase, so you can actually type the commands however you want, as long as you have the spelling correct. So that works. So we can say a message went at top, and it'll display the message up here above the clock. But then when we go to interact with something else in the same room, it'll default back to the normal drawing things at the bottom. if we're on the upper half of the screen, which is important. So when we go down south, it's going to be at the bottom here. If we go down and talk to this thing at the bottom, it's going to be at the top. Good. So this is good. This is exactly what we wanted. Now if I say false, it'll be at the bottom. There we go. So that control is important. I'm trying to think of if it's going to be necessary to have an automatic, like revert it to automatic. Okay, I'll make that a possibility, because I might want to have that. So we'll say if length args is equal to 0, well, let's just leave it like this for now. We'll just leave it like this. This works fine. All right, so yeah, that's a good start. This is definitely a good start. It's definitely shaping up. Lots of work has been going on over the past couple of days. Something that's really exciting is that something that's really exciting is that I actually got an offer from a publisher to make games for mobile platforms, for Android and iOS. So I'm super jazzed. I was able to, yeah, I'm going to be pursuing that, and it's really exciting. So that's kind of what's been pushing me to work on this and work more diligently. And so toward that end, what I'm going to be doing probably today is switching from Raylib over to Ebiton. Raylib is a really good framework for game development. I highly recommend it. The real reason why I'm switching, I'm planning to switch from Raylib to Ebiton is because Raylib 1 doesn't have iOS support. Well, actually not for one, it doesn't have iOS support. That's really it. There's not really any reason to switch otherwise. It works fine for me, but because of the lack of iOS support, and I'm going to need that, it's probably best if I switch to Ebiton and try seeing how that works at the very least. It's not really a huge deal. Probably won't take that much time to do. The difference between Raylib and Ebiton is in control of the application, rendering things, playing sound. So a lot of that stuff has been abstracted or centralized. So it's not really that hard to replace it. So I don't envision really having too much trouble doing it. It's just going to take up a little bit of time. But ideally, I would have the ability to then port this or develop this for mobile devices as well, because I think this specifically would do really well on mobile devices. I think that the design of the game would benefit from mobile devices, or mobile devices would still be able to kind of enjoy the same experience as a normal computer. So that's fun. Besides that, I had been working on other Android port or Java port of Resolve, which is working pretty well. Nothing really outstanding or amazing. It doesn't really run faster. I kind of thought it might, but it runs roughly at the same speed. The real fun thing though is that it now is running on my phone. I can now run Resolve demos and stuff on my phone, which is good. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Something that's kind of interesting is I went back and was working with Resolve to make or port Resolve over to Java, and I was kind of surprised that the amount of code that I wrote with Java seems to be a little bit less than the amount of code that I wrote with Go for Resolve. Like when I ported everything over, it was a roughly the same amount of code. I kind of thought that Go would be less because Java is just a more explicit language, but that's not really the case. That's not the case in all cases. Java, I would say, is more explicit than Go, but you have stuff like where is a good example? Well, you have stuff where examples like this, gdx.input.getx and getY return integers, but a vector 3 takes floats. Java handles that fine. It's like, okay, you want to put an integer in a float, fine, I'll do it. In Go, it's like no. You have a float 32 or int 32, and you're trying to put it into a float 32. Too bad. You have to cast it, and you have to cast numbers constantly. Even for that, where like no precision is lost, it's the same bit, it's the same depth of numbers, and it's going from a higher resolution number into a lower resolution number, it still requires you to cast it, which is stupid. To me, it feels like it's unnecessary. Java just is like, oh, you want to take a input into a float deal. So I mean, like, I like that. It's really smooth in that respect. But overall, they're roughly the same in terms of like complexity of speech or of language grammar. They're both fine. So yeah, this was fun. This was a fun little project to kick over Resolve to Java. Runs really well. I'll show it a little bit, even though there's not really anything to see. Yeah, so it's the same demo from before, roughly, where you can spawn a line and cross objects, and then it numbers the intersections. So that's good. Yeah, so overall, this has been fun. I'm going to be working probably with, if I can go to work with Resolve and with the current project, that's probably best, rather than having to move to Java, just because that's going to take a few days, probably a couple of days, to port all of this over to Java. Maybe just one day, but I'd rather stick with what I have, since I know how it works and there's not really any surprises here. Yeah, so that's the current plan, is to see about moving to Ebiton or possibly Pixel. That's another game dev library for Go, but yeah, Ebiton should be satisfactory, I think, and it's pretty popular, pretty much like the you could say go-to library, I would say, or one of the go-to libraries for game development. That's really updated frequently and in, you could say, heavy use by the author. So we'll see about that. Yeah, overall, this is looking pretty good, feeling pretty good. Still have quite a few things to do, but it's definitely shaping up, and there's definitely, lots of good stuff to work on. One of the ideas I had for this game was a kind of little puzzles where it like brings up a different screen where you have a cursor that you have to like interact with and things like that. And oh, that's actually something else that I implemented, was the ability to, let's see, the ability to basically see if you're touching a specific zone on a board, which is important, because that way you can see like, oh, I'm in the place where I can use this item, or oh, I'm, this or that. That's easier, because before I had some kind of like magic code, magic names like this, where it's like, oh, if player.touching.name equals this, whereas like special code that was running to basically see like, oh, are you touching this particular NPC, or are you in this particular room? I had these kind of substitutions built in, and instead I want to move away from that and come up with designs that are more generic in general. So instead of that, I have just the ability to see if you're touching a specific zone. That's or a specific slice on the sprite file. So that's good, because that way I can have this where, let's see if we have where's the bookshelf? Here we go. So the bookshelf, this red slice on top is the brain. That's basically where you interact, but this red slice on the bottom is the can use book slice. And as long as you're standing in this zone, you're colliding with this zone, and you use the book, it'll basically say, oh, you're touching the can use book zone, and so it'll give you the option to use the book, to put it into the bookshelf. So that's easy. It's simple, rather than using some kind of complex code to say like, if touching this and if this and if that. You can just say, or rather, if touching this NPC and you're on this board and all this and all that, it can just say if you're touching this slice, then you're good to go. So yeah, works pretty well. Satisfied with that solution. I feel like it's pretty simple and is good. Yeah, I feel like I would love to see more. Well, that's not perfect. This isn't perfect, but now that I'm thinking about like possible alternative uses, like all possible alternatives, it's not perfect, but it's definitely I think, a step in the right direction. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it all goes, and hopefully it'll be a good outcome. Hopefully it'll work well, and hopefully it'll be a good resolution for this. All right, so yeah, this has been a few minutes here for a devlog video. Thank you very much for watching. I've been SolarLune, and hopefully I'll be able to keep hacking away at this and make something cool in the coming future. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.